What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another very special episode of You, Me, and Capri's The PlayStation Drive. This is going to be an extra mile talking all about Horizon Forbidden West. My name's Matt. I'll be your host for this evening's events, and I'm joined by my partner in reviewing crime. I don't know, it's kind of turning into that. We've done a few of these together. Mr. Sean Capri himself. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, I like when we play games and then we hang out together afterwards. It's super fun. I'm feeling bubbly. We literally just jumped on this Skype call thing that we got going on, and we didn't even are you good? How are you doing, man? I don't even know. I hope you're okay. Are you all right?
Doing okay. Finally on the up and up after everything. Still a little weak. Still getting tired at 7 p.m. hits, and I'm just oh my God, I'm done for the day. But I'm doing all right. How are you feeling? Because I know you've had some tummy troubles and some sickness as well.
My tummy is giving me some troubles, Matt. Yeah, a little bit. It's hit everybody in the family. It is now with my wife, so we're all good. The rest of us are fine, and my wife not so much. So sending positive vibes, and she was just saying to me, she's like, "Is this forever?" It's when you're that sick, it just doesn't feel like it's. You keep waking up from naps and stuff, and you're just no good. So
it's just a blur. I hope she feels better soon, my dude. That sucks.
Me too.
I completely understand.
Me too. But I'm good, man. I got a Diet Coke. We're ready to talk about this game. I think we're gonna fight, but who knows? It's a beautiful game, but we're gonna talk about it, dude.
We're gonna talk all about it. But before we get any further into that, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, please also hit that bell to get notifications for when we upload cool stuff. You know about it right away. And please also hop on over to patreon.com/Yumi and Capri. Toss a little tip in that old tip jar if you want more content, including one of my favorably named podcasts in the world, Sean Capri, which is what again? Sorry.
The favorite one you can never remember, the Pants Patreon Podcast for Patrons podcast.
There you go.
Is Ask Me Anything, whatever you guys want. Patrons at the $3 plus tier get exclusive content like that and so much more at patreon.com/Yumi Capri.
Exactly. So hop on over and please do that. And also, before we get any further into this, we just want to give a huge shout out to PlayStation Canada for hooking us up with review codes for Horizon Forbidden West. We both got codes and we reviewed it, and that's what we're going to be talking all about it. Now, Sean.
Yes. Man.
I feel like we're going to have some conversations around this game. But before we get into the complexities of the Forbidden West, tell me a little bit about your history with Horizon. Did you play Zero Dawn? Did you like Zero Dawn? What were your kind of feelings heading into Forbidden West?
I did play Zero Dawn, and of course, right alongside Breath of the Wild, back in 2017. And my wife and I both back then we did a bit of a switcheroo actually with the Switch, where we play side by side. I've got two TVs on the wall, and it allows us to play co-op games together, but separately on our own TVs. Ain't nobody playing split screen around in this house. But the reason I bring that up is not a humble brag. The reason I bring it up is because at one point in time when this game came out, I was playing Horizon and Chelsea was playing. My wife, she was playing Breath of the Wild, and it was just what a difference, man. Back then, I just remember the graphical difference, and it's this is the launch title for the Switch, which is fine, but just right out of the gates, Horizon just struck you as absolutely gorgeous. I still remember when this game was revealed, and it's what is this? She's got these locks, and she's a strong female protagonist. She's got this bow and arrow, and she's sliding in the grass, and what is that robot dinosaur slithery kind of thing? And just instantly grabs your attention. What a great world. And for me, it is important to talk about my experience with the first game, because as I got further and further into it and started unraveling the mysteries, I enjoyed that game much, much more as I got later on in the game. And started understanding what does Zero Dawn even mean? I'll try to stay spoiler free even for the last game. But basically everything that happened in the past was the most interesting things I'd seen in video games in a long, long time. My struggle with the original game was a lot of the present day stuff, a lot of the tribal stuff was kind of uninteresting to me. I don't think there was a huge amount of memorable characters, some really cool moments, certainly for Aloy, and a great character in Aloy, and a different kind of combat mechanics and things like that. But I definitely struggled with present day stuff. So when we got into the sequel, I'm give me more of that. Give me more of unraveling secrets and who was Elizabeth and all this stuff, and what's Silence up to. I really like that kind of the mystery there. It reminds me of Lost in a little bit. But I came away torn on the first one, to be honest with you. So I was excited to see where they're going to go with Forbidden West, my friend.
You know what? I'm actually exactly in the same boat. started Zero Dawn back in the day when it came out, but again, I was playing Breath of the Wild at the same time, and I just couldn't vibe with Zero Dawn at the time. I thought like the combat was clunky. Like, especially even the traversal where you had Breath of the Wild where you could climb anything, go anywhere, and Zero Dawn felt very limited in its scope, alongside of it. So I fell off of it, and I didn't actually play it again until the beginning of this year, where I like tore through Zero Dawn and then Forbidden Wilds to get ready for Frozen Wilds to get ready for Forbidden West. FWs. I don't know whether they like their FWs over here.
FWs, yeah.
So I agree. I liked Aloy a lot. I thought that the monster design in a lot of the robots was some of the best I've ever seen. The world was beautiful.
Yep, design,
but I found
for sure.
I found the story a bit clunky. I found the finale left a really bad taste in my mouth. I just thought it was kind of like it was just shoot, okay, we'll getting into spoilers, but it was just like, use a turret, and then it was fight one enemy that you've already fought before, plus a bunch of other smaller enemies. Like it just didn't really hit the way that I wanted to. And along with a lot of the side characters, I'm on a different page with you in Silence. I don't like him. I think I don't like his character at all.
Wow, really?
Yeah, at all. I think he's like condescending and rude to the point where he just for me, he turns into unlikable.
Well, he's not supposed to be likable. I don't know that I'm saying like he's not my buddy or anything, but I think like design wise, like character wise, I think it's like, he serves the plot pretty well, and he's kind of got some mystery to him. He's kind of ambiguous, especially in the first game. Like, is he your friend? Like, what's the deal with this guy? He was a pull. He was sort of like a gravitational force for me, especially in the first game, and pretty sparsely used in this game as well, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I wasn't sad about. I understand the points of him in the plot. I just didn't find his character. Like every time he was on screen, I was kind of like, oh my god, here we go again. But
oh wow,
yeah. But so I left Zero Dawn kind of being like, I see the potential here. This was Guerrilla's first attempt at an open world RPG.
Which is crazy.
Right? I saw where they were going with it. And for me, heading into Forbidden West, it was like, is this going to be the Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 leap of quality that I'm expecting out of this? Is this going to be this next step that I'm going to kind of really sink into and enjoy? And it wasn't until I started looking at Zero Dawn and coming into Forbidden West, more of like a Monster Hunter than a Legend of Zelda, right? The combat, like you really do have to prepare and plan. So I went into Forbidden West kind of like, with higher expectations, but not being a massive fan of Zero Dawn. So before we get any further into Forbidden West, Sean, how far did you get in Forbidden West? Did you finish the game? Did you play a bunch of the side content? What was your path like through the game?
I did pretty well, man. I didn't completionist it, but I rolled credits. I did a bunch of side quests, and there was a point in time where I was like, I really need to mainline this thing. And spoilers, I didn't love this game, and I was expressing this to my wife. I'm like, I just don't know if I'm really liking this game. She's like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just doing some side quests right now. And she's like, doesn't that mean that you like it? Like, why are you doing why are you doing the side quests? And I was like, oh, maybe I do like it a little more than my frustration is letting on right now. But yeah, I did a lot of stuff, and honestly, like gameplay wise, there's a lot to like here. But yeah, rolled credits on it, completed the whole story. I'd be really interesting to do a spoiler cast with you at a certain point, but that's not for today. I think we're going to talk pretty spoiler free for our conversation today. But how about you?
I rolled credits and I did a bunch of the side content along the way as well. So we both finished the game. We both did a bunch of side content.
A couple drones, couple tall necks, like that kind of stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I found a lot of the side content quite engaging this time around. But okay, surface level thoughts before we get into the deep. What did you think of Forbidden West as a whole?
I thought it was pretty good. Like I don't know how it's really hard to describe, and sometimes people will get on like, well, it's just lazy to give it like a 7. It's like, I think 7s are kind of like the hardest things to describe. Like where you don't, I don't love it. I'm not suggesting that I'm landing on a 7 or 8 or whatever the number is, but I'm like, I don't know. Like it's not a 10 for me. It's way better than like a 4, 5, 6 kind of thing. So it's like, it's hard. It's not going to be like lasting with me for a long time. It's going to be very similar to the first game where I'm like, I'm left wanting more. I wish it was something else in certain ways that we'll get into. Like it's like the definition of a mixed bag for me, man. There's some things that I just love. It's absolutely and stupidly gorgeous. But why can't I climb stuff well? Like there's for everything that is great about it, there's stuff that's frustrating, and I'm sure people are already screaming at me like comparing the climbing for Breath of the Wild, and that continues to come up. I kind of detached from that comparison. I want to detach that right at the start, where I look more at like Assassin's Creed, actually, where you can also climb everything. Like Link wasn't the first guy to do it, and he's not the last guy to do it.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot ever since then too. So yeah, like mixed bag is my high level thoughts on this. But how about the other thing that I wanted to say before I throw it back to you is I played this on 2 systems. I played this on a PS4 Pro and on a I eventually got my PS5 actually. So I got the whole experience of like moving my save on over and everything. And I'm here to say, just from a technical standpoint, like if all you have is a PS4 Pro, like this game is gorgeous still. Like should go down as one of the prettiest games available on PS4. And yeah, so I had a great time with my old Spidey PS4 Pro before moving on over to the bright and shiny behemoth that is the PS5.
The big boy. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Holy cow is right. Yeah, I think you make a couple interesting points there. So one more question that I want to ask before I kind of give my thoughts is I really do think that this will be a lot of people's game of the year when things are said and done.
Yeah, no doubt.
It won't be my personal game of the year. It sounds like it definitely won't be yours. But do you see this in your top 5? Like, obviously, knowing what's possibly coming out this year, do you think it even lands in your top 5?
It's hard to say. It probably could. And what I want to try to convey today into my conversation is like, that it's like I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that it's not a quality game. Okay. And a lot of my hesitation around, is it top 10, is it or top 5, is it my game of the year, is like I have a lot of like frustrations with it. My experience was not like I'm having a great time all the time. Like I had a lot of just like why kind of moments. So that's really that's kind of keeping me from just having a glowing recommendation. Like everybody should play this. I don't know. There's a couple things that are holding me back from that, but quality wise, like just from a design standpoint and just a showcase for the technology and for many reasons, like even I'm going to have to get on this thing that you PlayStation guys do all the time where it's like the haptics, this DualSense thing. Like it was actually pretty cool, man. It was actually pretty neat. So there's lots to love here. And I want to make sure that I'm glad that I think we may be coming on closer to the same page than I imagined, because I want to make sure that it's a balanced conversation. For everything that I was frustrated about, there are things that I was just like, holy crap, people should experience this because that's remarkable and it's next level and this looks next gen and those types of things.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. So I actually really did like the game a lot. I found Aloy's character arc to be more satisfying this time around. I found the general story more interesting. I'm with you. The tribal stuff, it was kind of in the first game more hit or miss for me. I found it much more involving this time. I found like a lot of the side content to be more meaningful. Whether like I found like the rewards that you usually got were kind of worth the journey, but also like there was times where like I was running through an area and I was like, I don't want to really do any side quests right now. But then I'd like overhear something and I'd be like, oh, maybe I do want to do that thing over there. I found the combat to be tighter. Like Aloy was much more agile and much more versatile this time around. And I actually genuinely really liked it. But I don't know why, Sean, and I'm trying to think of a way to kind of explain this. I just don't know if Horizon is going to be one of my favorite series as a PlayStation IP. I really did really enjoy Forbidden West for what it was. And I am excited for whatever will come next. But there's just something there that I was kind of like, this was awesome, but I quickly forgot about it. If that makes sense.
It's loaded with characters. Everybody who gives like any sort of significant level of or amount of performance is done really well. Voice acting is done really well. The motion capture is done really well. They've definitely done a much better job capturing even just those conversations. But it's very bloated. Like I feel like this script really could have been a little pared down and maybe some editing done. Like some of the conversations just go forever, and it's like goodness gracious, like. It really is. It's a lot to go through. So when you talk about like maybe it's a little bit forgettable. It's like, well, yeah, you just experienced a story with about like 75 characters, and they all had shit to say, man. They all had like an impact, or at least they were trying to have an impact on the story. And you compare that to other games where the character count is fewer, and it is actually less is more in that case. And I just kept finding like every time I turn a corner. Number one, too many characters, I think is my number one concern there. But then number two, it's like every time, even the notion of like the Forbidden West, like you don't go over there, like you're not going to survive. And I'm like, this is fine over here. Like this is like I crossed the line, and like there's a moment when you cross over, and that was pretty remarkable for sure. But like everything else is like, this is seems like the not forbidden East. Like it seems okay, man. Just a little different scenery. And yeah, every time that you talked about the insurmountable odds, they were totally surmountable. You know what I mean? Like it was like the Tanakh, like you better not like run into the Tanakh. And it's like, did we just become best friends? Are we okay? Like everything that seemed like it was pitched as the end wasn't dire enough, I don't think. Like until you get to the true, like here's what's really going on, then it's like, yeah, how are we going to deal with this? But there was a lot of hype and then it never really like lived up to it. So I think that all speaks to your point about what's memorable and what is forgettable.
Yeah, because I think this game nails a lot of its set pieces. I think like the bigger moments do land well. And I do think like, again, I do think a lot of the side content does feel good, but like you mentioned, like I do feel like there's a lot of it and it kind of gets lost in the weeds sometimes. Like some of the side content, like the stuff with the drones, for example, or even like some of the smaller stuff where you're like have almost like the picture frame that you're trying to line up with the environment. There was certain stuff that was kind of like
cool.
I thought that was cool, but I don't know how meaningful it ended up.
I didn't finish them all.
Right. Neither did I. But like the thing that I want to shout out about this game is I am so incredibly proud and I respect Guerrilla so much for just the remarkable amount of diversity that is in this game and the way undeniable. That everything comes together. Like you have so many beautiful skin tones, so many beautiful people from all over. And it's like, it's just there. It's ever present. And that's fantastic because like for a studio to go out there and to like really celebrate the entire, like everyone in that way was just fantastic. So I really want to give Guerrilla their flowers for that because I think that needs to be mentioned. And I think that needs to be brought up because they rocked it in my opinion in that respect, especially. But yeah, I don't know, dude. I think Horizon also just keeps getting hit with this timing problem.
It's pretty remarkable.
Like genuinely speaking, like for the success that both the Zero Dawn and Forbidden West are and will continue to be, I feel like there's just something around the corner that quickly overshadows it, that quickly kind of takes away from it. Not because the game doesn't have the quality there, but I just feel like this game, this series, so far at least, batting 2 out of 2, is also just partly kind of it's a problem with timing. Like there was no way that they ever could have known
how would you ever know?
No,
Breath of the Wild and then Elden Ring. It's like it might be the only series that has a launch period like that. Like how does that ever happen? You just have these generational games. I'm curious, Matt. Like how did you play it and how did you like the style of play? Because there's obviously like a lot of different ways that you can go about this game, and the skill trees kind of speak to that. I think there's about 6 different paths that you can really mainline. You can be stealthy. You can be like melee focused. You can do all sorts of things. So I'm curious how what you did and then how that kind of like played into your enjoyment of the game.
Yeah, I think that I think there's too much skill. I think there are too many skill trees, and especially because a lot of like, especially as you work your way down, a lot of them there is quite a bit of repetition across what some of the things do. Be like, okay, now your concentration time is a little bit faster. Now it's a little bit faster. I think like they could have. Like you mentioned at that point, less is more to kind of like boiled those trees down a little bit more and just kind of made them a little more interesting. But in terms of how I played it, I did a lot of melee combat and I did a lot of just amping up my bows and my skill tree in that
so did
respect.
I. Same thing.
I didn't do a lot of stealth. I don't think stealth is ultimately that I don't think it's that effective in Horizon. Just because more often than not, you're going to get 1 or 2 stealth hits in on a bigger enemy. You're going to get 1 stealth hit on a big enemy, and on like an encampment, you'll take down some of them in stealth. But like, I just don't think the stealth system is as thought out and heavily implemented as it should be for it to be like a focal feature of what this game offers. Because I just quickly find that the stealth just goes sideways pretty quick.
I had the exact same thought as I was playing it, and that was one of my big frustrations with it, is that it encourages stealth. It encourages you to like plot and plan and all these things, and it's like you get 1 or 2 hits, and then it's just all out combat, and then you're just left with this bow and arrow, which is like that was when I was really frustrated. I was like, I want to fight these things. I want to have fun and knock the components off them and hit the weak points so that I got all the take more damage off and things like that. But so often, especially early in the game, I was like, I'm not having fun with the combat. And it wasn't until I kind of like was grinding away to get a little bit more powerful, to get better weapons and things like that, to have more in my arsenal, that like I started to have a little bit more fun afterwards. But it was also paired up with the further I got, the harder the enemies got. So I just kind of kept running into the same problems. So the fun that I had, and this is where I kind of took a bit of a turn, was in that side content when I would just go back a couple levels where I was overpowered. I was going to be safe. I didn't have to be like worried about that sort of stuff. That was generally like my experience with the combat. Starting to realize that I could, at a certain point, I got some sort of add-on where I smacked the shit out of those dinosaurs and it would actually like knock them down. And that was my best chance. Like it would actually knock them out and I could go in for a critical strike. And that's where things really got pretty satisfying for me. But even the notion of going to collect different materials, which are generally like a variety of things you pick up on the ground or plants or sticks, but also components from other monsters, from other machines. Sometimes I just found like it was hard to get some of those components I really needed. Like I just kept running. I was like, I'm frustrated with the combat, so I want to get better at the combat. So it thrust me into a situation where I can't get the stupid component because the combat was frustrating me. So in my kind of like purple items, I don't think that I really was able to upgrade anything past like level 2 because I couldn't beat the machine strong enough to get that component off and then go upgrade my stuff even further. So that was like, why was I shouldn't have hit that ceiling so soon, I don't think.
Yeah. The game does a weird thing where I actually think there's just too many types of weapons and B, variety within those types.
Ammos and things like that.
Yeah, I very quickly kind of just found the few weapons that I liked and stuck with them. And like I focused ultimately on like certain types of damage. Like that exploding javelin thing, that thing wrecked. Like that was amazing. I used, I think the first one I got pretty much the entire game because again, sometimes it was kind of like, I don't know if it's worth it for me to go out there to hunt down the parts that I need to upgrade this thing. If this one is effective once you kind of learn how to use it properly. But it was also like, I think like it was almost overwhelming. Every new kind of area you went into, there was new weapons, there was new stuff to do. Like there was new upgrades. And it's kind of like parsing out which ones you want to use and like which kind of like elemental damage and stuff you should be or want to be doing. There's just a lot of time commitment in that respect that I just didn't really feel like I wanted to put the time in just to do more poison damage or to do more acid damage when like I know I can kind of focus more on the different arrow types that are just kind of normal but do more damage or again. That javelin was just so good, along with like the little buzz blades that you could toss out that kind of shredded armor as well. Like once I found I kind of my core few weapons, I didn't even stop to check in with every merchant along the way, just because I was kind of like, I know I'm not going to have it. Same. And do I really need it if personally like I kept being successful with what I had, I found a flow that worked. That guy kind of just like, I'm going to, whenever I come up against anything, I'm going to throw the javelin at it a bunch, then I'm going to hit the weak point a bunch. And that's kind of going to be the thing. And like, even things like the trip caster, which was a fundamental part of the first game. I don't know if they like reworked some of the physics this time or like they kind of reworked how it kind of mounts itself. But like, there was a lot of times where I try and like set up like a tripwire and it would just not work.
Yep. Yeah, so I barely used it, man. And you're right; it was such a mainstay in the first one. I think there was another one I think it was called the tripwire, and I don't know if I didn't find it, but there was one where you kind of like it would attach to the machine, and then you attach the other end to the ground. It would just kind of like trap them on the ground.
Oh yeah, the pole caster was it? Like,
yeah.
Something.
It would kind of like just bungee them to the ground. It's like that thing was awesome, and that was my mainstay in the first game, and a little bit frustrating that it wasn't there. What else did you like about the game, though, man? This is like I said, it's definitely a mixed bag here, and I don't want to get too dogpiling on it. But yeah, there's got to be good things here too.
Yeah, well, and that's what I mean. Like, I really did like the game. I think it's just even being a little bit further removed from it now. Like things are just kind of coming back to me a little bit more. But I really did love Aloy's arc. I think the marketing of this game didn't show the hand for what the story actually was, and I'm very happy about that personally because I didn't expect the main story to go where it went, and that actually made like I genuinely really enjoyed the story for what it was because it caught me off guard, and it felt big, it felt epic, it felt really really cool. A lot of those set pieces are awesome. The combat, like I mentioned, felt better than ever before. Like how agile Aloy was using the glider and the kind of like the rope.
The glider's great.
The glider's great. The grappling hook is awesome. And just being able to actually feel more control of the environment, which is what I thought Zero Dawn didn't accomplish just as well.
Yeah.
I thought there was a lot. I think there is a lot to love here. And like I said, this definitely will be people's game of the year. This will be in their top 3, their top 5. There's a lot of people who I know are going to really vibe with this. And I honestly, like you mentioned already, graphically, it is one of the most, if not the most stunning piece of video game graphics I think I've ever seen. I actually wanted to ask Sean, like, as you were playing through, which performance setting did you use?
Oh, I'm always frames, man. Always frames. And which reminds me, there wasn't an option on the PS4 Pro.
Okay.
It was just the game was the game, and whatever screen you had, it would push out to that resolution. Yeah.
Yeah. I was the same way. I think I played like the first hour on the 30 frames per second because, again, there was a number of articles saying like play the 30 frames because the game is just so beautiful. But I think just being on next gen has spoiled me now. Like the 60 frames, I was kind of like, oh no, this looks too, jittery for me. So I switched over to 60 frames per second as well. And again, the game was staggeringly beautiful even in that, and it was incredibly beautiful in the 30 frames as well. But yeah, I think I really do think that there is a lot to love here. I just don't know if it's 100% for me. It is definitely a massive success. It is definitely that it is. I really do think it is that Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2 leap of quality. I think they've nailed a lot of what they were going to do here. Maybe it's just open world fatigue a little bit. Maybe it's just, again, with how many games we have going on right now, that it just didn't connect for me 100%. But Sean, what were your like top 3 favorite things in this game? What did this game do for you that you were kind of like, these are some of my favorite parts of it?
I think the one thing that's interesting is you can almost treat them as a spoiler because they're so important to the game and so wonderful. I don't want to mention any individual one of them, but the locations you go in this game are awesome. Yep. And the design of them, like when you talk about like the look of this game, they are exemplified when you get to particular spots that are in the world. It's so silly. Like the fact that I'm dancing around them as a spoiler just goes to show they're as important to discovering them as a set piece, as a location and a setting as the story beats are, in my mind. Like the places you go in this are like, that is the first thing that comes to mind for me, actually, is like there's one particular spot, you meet a couple guys over there, and they're this like little motley crew. They've got humble goals, and they're hopefully kind of who I'm talking about. And there's some of my favorite little ragtag group of guys, and they sit in an awesome place in the game, and it's like one of the most memorable parts, to be honest with you. There are a few characters who do stand out to me, and this is another one of those things that I will take away from my experience. Like, I don't know how to it's so hard to not talk about spoilers here. But there's a computer character that is very, very prominent in this game, very important to the success of Aloy's mission, who I think is portrayed excellently and is very intense and very understandable and kind of just compliments Aloy quite a lot, actually, and just they're both kind of 1 + 2 = 3. Like they're very logic based, like trying to understand the human condition, but they come at it from completely different angles. I thought she was performed really well, and that she was designed exceptionally well. I really liked coming back to her as like a home base, as like a guiding, almost like a mother. Like she plays like this wonderful role for you as the player, but then also as the story, she's like she kind of carries things along and gives you guidance, gives you direction on like what you should do next, and gives you some certainty. And I also think that there's a couple other characters. There's one that comes late in the game as well that is juxtaposed to Aloy and who she is and what she represents and her relationship to the past. I thought that some of those pieces, like when you just look at them, like when I'm kind of siloed in, I'm just kind of tunnel vision on them right now. I'm like, these characters are amazing. And they took me forever to get to. They got me through like, I don't know how many hours of Star Wars prequels levels of politics for the first, 5 or 10 hours or so. It's like, get me out of here. I get this tribal stuff is the setting, but the interesting stuff was you set up kind of a home base, and your friends are around and you can go do all these different things. So those are the things that, like, when I think about those on their own, it's like, golly, like it's damn near Mass Effect level. It's not a Mass Effect type of game. You don't have decisions quite like Mass Effect. There's a couple that have some impact. There's another decision that you help a friend out. There's a late mission in the game. You help a friend out with his a situation that he finds himself in that I thought was going to play out in the end. And he's like, I don't really need this thing. You risked your life for this solution for me, and I don't really need it. So I'm like, those were some of the frustrations as well, where I felt like I was going to have an impact on the outcome, and it didn't really. But yeah, there are a couple characters that go, holy cow. But yeah, it's mixed bag again. Every element of villainy in this was silly to me. I felt like the story goes in South Park types of scenarios here, where it's just like, and here's what's really going to happen. And if you thought that was crazy, we're going to take it even crazier. And I didn't like the levels that this story ends up going to. I don't like where it leaves off. And I liked that the original game was like rooted in something in the past. And this is the opposite. This doesn't leave you looking to the past anymore. It leaves you totally the opposite. And I'm like, I'm not really here for it. I don't really love that. And that's ultimately why I'm left feeling the way that I am. The frustration, a little bit of frustrations with the combat, and like where this story goes, it's like, come on. Anything but that, you guys. Come on, man.
See, I'm actually on the opposite side there.
I know you are. A lot of people are.
Yeah, I love where this story went, and I love how it ended. I do agree with you that the villains, especially as a whole, are pretty underbaked. Like they very much are like kind of like mustache twirling, like we're evil.
Yes,
and even
thank you.
Evil. Some of the twists are kind of like, yeah. I mean, anyone could have seen this coming. But like just kind of like how it leaves off and the potential for where it could go. I think I'm really curious to see what the sequel is going to look like, because they're going to have to change a lot of what makes Horizon, depending on the story, like where the story ends off. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I thought that like there were so many awesome parts to Forbidden West, and like like you bringing up choice. I do think that there were some really cool moments at that, because like mild spoilers here, but like you meet a tribe or at least like a section of one of the tribes who are like struggling to have water. Like there's not enough water to go around, and that as you kind of learn about what's happening in there, it ultimately leads up to like this kind of like almost like a coup between like this is leader and this leader.
Point.
You spend time with both of them, and then you do have to make a meaningful decision of like, okay, who's going to take over? And like there are those moments kind of sprinkled in. I just wish that like I just wish there was more of that.
Yeah.
Like I do wish there was more of that kind of level of kind of engagement in some of the other content, because there were moments where I literally paused it and I sat there for like a minute and be like, I don't know what to do. I understand both sides
totally.
here.
Yeah, it's like just more of that. It's not the core DNA of the game. The core DNA of the game is like its story, its exploration. There's a lot to love there. And I am left like, having finished the game, I am left like, I kind of want to go back and just like wreck shop now that I'm super powerful. I've got all the things that I need. And I think that I probably would have a lot of fun there. But yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on that, my friend.
Yeah. And okay, so let's touch on the combat a little bit here. What did you feel about the new parts of her arsenal? Because we've touched on the glider, we've touched on the the what's it called, the grappling hook. But how did you feel about the combat here versus the first one? Did it connect with you as much, like once you started getting upgraded, or because you brought up a point when you were on the PlayStation Drive a few weeks ago that I hadn't really considered, but you kind of left me thinking about it as like the Metroid effect that Aloy goes through into the beginning of this game, where all of a sudden like she's stripped of everything meaningful that happened to her in the first game in terms of like combat mechanics and stuff. Yeah. How did all that kind of come together for you?
It never really does. I'm glad you brought that up, which for anybody who didn't catch that, I kind of just almost wish that there's an opportunity here in this game where if you're going to start the character over just from scratch, that perhaps the refinding of skills and refinding of weapons could be meaningful. They could be like, like it could be like this big moment, and it just never really feels like that. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it never really like came together. The only time where I was like, oh yeah, I'm a badass now, was if I went backtracking, kind of like what I mentioned. And that's kind of the crux of what makes it special for Metroid or a lot of other games versus something like this, which is, or Link, like speaking of the like you get the weapon and then you do the thing with that weapon. Like it's like now you're able to get past this thing. And to a certain degree that it's kind of there. I think that spear is probably the best example of that. Like when you finally get that spear and it explodes on somebody, it's like, okay, now you're able to take care of some pretty badass dudes. But it kind of never happens again, I would argue. Like I think that's probably the most prominent and maybe the only one throughout the entire game. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. Again, just you bringing up that point is something that I hadn't really considered as I was playing through, and looking back, I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I feel like they could have kind of worked that through a little bit differently, especially going back to the point of just how many weapons and variety of weapons and variety of types of weapons there are. There's a lot going on in this game, that like a lot of it, and I think you kind of nailed it. The more that we talk about this. This game would have benefited from a less is more design approach. I think if it kind of honed in on some of the things that really make this game special. Because like I don't think it ever reaches like, you know, Assassin's Creed or even Witcher 3 levels of bloat in terms of like how much, because you know I think a lot of it is meaningfully put together. But I feel like if they just kind of honed in on that a little more, this game could have been one of my, you know, favorite games of the year. But I don't know, dude. Like I'm just the more I think about it, the more we talk about it, the more kind of like conflicted
sorry.
I am. Yeah. No, don't be sorry, because like I mean, these critical conversations are important, right? And like I said, I do think this game is fantastic. I do think that is a massive leap in terms of like where Zero Dawn was to what Forbidden West is. I think there's a lot to love here. I just don't know if it's personally 100% for me the way that I was kind of hoping it would be.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you, and I feel like I'm even like I like kind of honing in on some of the things that I really liked about it, because it is some of those performances are really special. But it's so weird when you do look at like an Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for example, or Valhalla, especially. Those maps are gigantic, or Far Cry or something like that. Like those maps are enormous, and this one is densely populated with things to do. Like there's definitely lots to do, but I would argue that it's not as vast as some of the other games, and that's maybe where some of the balance has been struck here, where it's not as, and it's so silly to like it's not as endless as Valhalla, but it's still a big map. It's not to say that this thing is small at all, but there's definitely lots to do, and there's plenty to do it all over the place. I'm curious, like on the I think one of the best things about it actually was this carries over from the last game, taking over, commandeering some of the machines so that you can ride them around. I thought that was great. I wanted to do more and more and more. I kind of wish that was even more central to it, because I could fast travel a lot, and they kind of deter you from fast traveling too much. They charge you like 25 little coins to get a fast travel pack, or you can do it free amongst all the campfires, of course. But I liked riding around on machines, man, and kicking them bucking them in the face and things like that. And it eventually goes to some pretty cool places near the end as well. But that's probably one of my favorite parts too.
I barely used them.
Wow.
I was the fast traveler. I just felt like I always had enough money to kind of be like, yeah, like I'm going to just kind of hop over there.
Well, eventually you got to go to a new place. Like eventually it's like, here's your mission, and it's 1,000 kilometers that way or whatever.
Yeah, right. And at that point I would ride. And like, I agree. Like the places that it goes towards the end, I wish that came sooner. I wish
me
that,
too.
Like, I wish that came sooner. Like for me, it's almost like akin to I don't mean to keep bringing this up, but like with Breath of the Wild, like the DLC eventually adds like, you know, a motorcycle, and it's kind of like you only get it after you beat the whole game, and it's kind of like, well, I would have loved to have this 12 hours ago. Just
Dude,
to kind
I thought it was like Lord of the Rings. Like in a sense, like not to get too spoilery, it's like that was a possibility the whole time. Right?
Yeah,
just do that.
Exactly,
that would have been way better.
Yeah, it's like I wish I had this. So like, and that's the thing. So I guess to kind of, you know, bring this conversation to its finale points. What are your closing thoughts, Sean? Do you recommend this game, and kind of what do you want to see out of a sequel? Right, like as we're both kind of talking, like there was a lot of things that you really liked here.
Yeah,
but what do you want to see them hone in on moving forward?
I want to see them hone in on exactly what you just talked about, which was like that decision that swung the fate of that tribe, or the relationships amongst that tribe, like one way or another. I want them to go full Mass Effect on it, dude. I think there's a possibility here, and there's so much of it like giving nods to what BioWare had done back in its heyday, and there's probably reasons why not too many developers are really even trying to do this. It's got to be hard. Like there's lots of little micro decisions and little nuance and writing and creating parts of stories that a lot of people will never see. So there's reasons for that, but I would love for that, man. The stakes are getting so huge in this world, in this universe, that you should lean into like, what is Aloy really going to do? She's like, that really would have helped solidify for me, justifying the time that I was spending with these people. I'm like listening to everybody's problems, and there's conflicts happening over here. But then I just kind of like go find something, or I do an errand for somebody else, and they're more or less happy. more of that, like what are the impacts of the politics, and is there a sway one way or another? I would love more of that. I want to see the combat like continue to evolve where it can be where Monster Hunter elements can have their time, but then other times where I'm just like, I can just fight things. I don't want every encounter to be a Monster Hunter thing where I'm like, I better have the right selection of ammo and this and that and the other. It's like, I don't feel like every encounter needed to be quite so cerebral. And so I wouldn't want to avoid things. So how can Aloy be a little bit better equipped to just go, you're just going to be dead. Like, I don't know, maybe she needs like a grenade or something like that. Like maybe, or something like a rocket launcher. I don't know, a grenade launcher. Just something a little bit better to wipe through some things without, and you kind of forego pulling some of the components off of the machines. And I'm just a little wary on the story here. This is actually going to be interesting because you almost have like 3 time periods that you're going to be talking about, like the tribal, the Elizabeth, and then like whoever the hell else. And so it's a balancing act at this stage. So there is lots to enjoy here. You nailed it. You said, and I was hyped about it when you said it. It's like, this game cannot be rushed through. This game actually needs to breathe, and it presents itself kind of like almost like a Tomb Raider, almost like an Uncharted. Like you can just like play through it. And it's like, that's not how you play this game. Mm-hmm. This game you need to breathe with this game. You need to grow and contract and just kind of like live organically with it. And that's probably the best way. And for that reason, like maybe that's what's not driving with me is I kind of approached it almost like a 30 to 40 hour game, but it's probably closer to double that to like really be okay with it, because some things are just, it's going to take its time with you. Even the lead up, I've heard some people take 18 hours to get to the Forbidden West. You know, that you can spend, just like Breath of the Wild, you can spend a whole bunch of time on the Great Plateau. You can spend a bunch of time before getting into quote unquote the Forbidden West. So yeah, I think it's about people's approaches to it as well. And it took me about halfway through to realize I just need to breathe with this game. Mm-hmm. I can't be pushing it. I can't be forcing it. But it also demands your attention with these really long dialogue pieces. So that's kind of my closing thoughts. A totally mixed bag. I think people will enjoy it, but for a variety of reasons. There's a lot to either like or dislike, and it just depends on what you're looking for in the game. So I'm just struggling to kind of tell you what this game does best. Mm-hmm. You know, like I just don't know. Like this game is outstanding for this and that reason.
Yeah, I think you also nailed it with just like this game, this world really does demand your time, and I think again, it's just part of this is just a victim of outside control, right? Like of just timing of other games, of just a very stacked season that like I think it's going to be a very interesting split between people in kind of like, let's call it quote unquote games media, who do review games, who work in the space, where because of what we do, we have to kind of be up to date with what we're playing and what's going on, versus someone who buys one game every couple months and can really kind of, you know, spend time and invest in it. I think there's going to be a bit of an interesting divide there as well, because again, we had to play it at a certain speed to be able to kind of go on to the next thing, because that's just the way that things are.
I don't want it to come across like I don't think that I really felt rushed. And the thing is, I just didn't want to listen to a lot of what those people were saying at the start, because I wasn't interested. It didn't ever felt like I was like, get on with it. It's just like, who cares is the attitude I had. Like I just wasn't pulled in. I don't think the stakes were strong enough. So that's definitely there. The time piece, I think, is mostly just, if you give yourself a lot of time, there's game to be played. Is kind of what I'm getting at there. There's lots to do. There's lots to be explored. And for the most part, it's a pretty rewarding experience. But yeah, like sometimes it's a slog getting through some of those story beats, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this game just does so much. So like there's
so
lot
much.
Like there's so much that the game does that a lot of it lands and some of it doesn't. And it's just, there really is a push and pull with this game. There are moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm having so much fun. This is fantastic. Yes. And there are moments where I'm kind of like, okay, let's get her moving here. Let's see what happens next around the corner. As to like what I possibly would want out of the sequel, I want them, like you mentioned, I want them to go more into the most like more Mass Effect style of what this could possibly be. Make things feel more meaningful without just kind of like overdoing it with how much is going on. Graphically, we already know whatever comes next is going to be incredibly gorgeous. So that's going to be fantastic. But I also just really want them to make stealth more meaningful. I want them to take certain take certain combat encounters and like risk a little bit with the design. If you were going to have these massive enemies, right? Don't sprinkle like 30 other smaller things around it. Let me observe this thing. Let me like if I'm going to stick around and drop traps, and you want me to kind of use this entire skill tree dedicated to traps and to potions and you know to mess with the enemy in a fundamental way, make it feel worth it, because I never felt like it did. So like there's a couple encounters that I remember vividly that I've kind of like I wish there was nobody else around here. I wish I had time to put the traps down, to engage meaningfully, and not just what I already know is as soon as I take the first shot, everybody's going to be on me, and it's like it's just to descend into chaos right away. So
what if we could do it together, like Monster Hunter? What if we could go hunt these things down together? And I would say that Aloy's becoming less independent as time goes on here, which I think that's interesting. It'd be fun to do this co-op or multiplayer in a certain way, and yeah, man, I think. I think you nailed it right there. Let the Monster Hunter stuff be Monster Hunter. Let's just go after this thing. Yeah, exactly.
So I think there's a lot to love here, and I think a lot of people are really going to vibe with this game, and I know a lot of people already have. And this is going to be a lot of people's game of the year, which is fantastic. Like anytime we get a game like this, it's just, regardless of how I feel about it, it's just a celebration in gaming, and it's a game to be celebrated. It's a fantastic showpiece for the PS5 and for PS4 Pro too, which makes me really happy to hear. So yeah, I mean, Horizon Forbidden West, it's out. Go check it out if you're interested, because there's a lot to love here. And maybe you'll connect with things differently than we do. Let us know in the comments. Let us know how you feel about stuff.
Sure,
right?
They will.
Like, I'm sure they will, which is great. Let's have these conversations. These are important. Sean, but before we get going, let's get some plugs in here. Sean, where can people find you?
I don't know if I should say this at the end of a conversation like that, but you can find me on the Xbox Drive or the Nintendo Drive, covering those consoles every single week here on the collection of podcasts under Yumi and Capri. And if you want to support myself, you can follow me on Twitter at Sean Capri, or on Twitch at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants.
Amazing. And you can find me over on Twitter at burnout_Matt. You can also find all our stuff over at youtube.com/burnoutbrighter. Actually, very quickly, we just had Ariana Gillis, who sang In the Flood, the title theme for Horizon Forbidden West, on the show. So if you're curious, learning a little bit more about the process and about that stuff, come check it out, because that was a funny episode and she was absolutely wonderful. So come check that out if you're interested. But Sean, I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for rocking with me. I had a wonderful time talking about Horizon Forbidden West, and we really should do a spoiler cast and really get into the nitty gritty of a lot of the things that we kind of alluded to, but we'll pull it apart a little bit more. But yeah, I'm excited. Everybody, thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one. Peace out.
The PlayStation Drive is fueled by patrons over at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you to our over 70 patrons, starting with our Capremium producers, Dallas Ford, Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the Xbox Drive and the Nintendo Drive. You can check out his new album, In My Element, over on Apple Music, as well as his website, and Lee Navarro, the fearless leader of the Phoenix Overdrive Extra Life team. Our platinum producers are Robbie Bobby Miller and Trucker Sloth, and our gold members, Argo, Brandon Myers, Dallas Robbins, Dano, Emily O'Kelly, Foolish Fuji, Joel Brooks, Jose Jimenez, Mac Time, Marcus O'Neill, Mr. and Mrs. Nasty Boots, RJ Kern, Skinny Matt, Tony Baker, and Xavier Reyes. Thank you all for all of your support, and if you're interested in joining the Patreon, head over to patreon.com/YumiCapri and pick the tier that's right for you.